All right, welcome back. ScottGodwin.net, movement, and meaning.com. Let's talk about the Blue Zones. 9 Lessons for Living Longer by Dan Buttner. The Blue Zones. Fantastic book. I highly recommend you pick up a copy. This book gets into a lot of the things that I love to teach people, that I love to write about and talk about. A man without a culture is a myth. That is a really great quote from one of my favorite writers, Alasdair MacIntyre, writer of After Virtue, a fantastic book, one of the best books of the last 100 years. And the reason I bring that up is the Blue Zones really gets into culture a lot. And do we have a culture of health or do we not? And I would say in America, largely we don't. There are definitely pockets of health here and there, but these 9 things that the author talks about in the Blue Zones are fascinating, really fascinating, because many of them deal with culture. The 5 places that the author profiles, the people live on average, around 10 years longer than the average American. The average American lives to be about 75 to 80, around 78. But these people are living much, much longer. Okinawa is one place in Japan, Nicoya, Costa Rica, Sardinia, Loma Linda, California, and Ikaria, Greece. Now, there are certain things that bind these people together in each of those places. The Okinawans, they have a traditional culture, traditional religion. The Nicoya group, mainly Catholics. The Sardinia group, mainly Roman Catholics also. And in Loma Linda, this is actually an Adventist group. And then in Ikaria, Greece, we have basically people who come from a Greek Orthodox tradition. And the reason I mention that, as I went through the book, I was fascinated by how many of these 9 lessons for living longer related to the culture. And studies have shown this time and time again, that people are connected to family and social groups and community and tribes and religions, live longer and are much healthier. So I want to go through these 9 lessons briefly. I highly recommend that you read the book, though, because you'll get a lot out of it. Study it. It may change your life. There's no doubt that it really reinforced and really even opened up my eyes to solidify my view that culture is the most important thing when it comes to health. Okay, but let's run through these things. Move naturally, number 1. Now, what that means is that you want to live an active life. You don't have to be a fitness buff. Hardly any of the people in the Blue Zones, actually none of these groups, were really big fitness people. Now, ironic thing is that in America, we spend billions on fitness, but we rarely are inconvenienced enough to have to move, to have to farm or to plant food or to do anything physically active. We never walk anywhere, and so that's not good. We want to have physical activity and be moving naturally. Number 2, Hari Hachibu. Hari Hachibu. That is a Japanese term, and it basically means eat until 80% full, until almost full. Okay, this was consistent amongst all the Blue Zones, that they don't stuff themselves. There's no Golden Corral buffets in these places. These people don't eat like that. The stomach will get smaller, and you can get used to it. It takes a few weeks, but just say, no, I'm not going to eat that, or I'm going to skip a meal. I'm going to eat a little bit less. Hari Hachibu. It's an it's a term, it's a phrase from Okinawa. Number 3, plant slant. Most of these Blue Zones either don't eat meat or they don't eat meat much at all. Actually, I think only the Loma Linda Seventh-day Adventist community was actually vegetarian, but the other groups, the other 4 groups, they basically eat pork and other types of meat on rare occasions. Their diet is very much plant-based. They eat a plant-based diet, and so should you. Many studies have shown the benefits of cutting back on animal products, dairy, meat. You can eat some meat, but just don't go overboard. Most people only need about 50 to 80 grams of protein per day. So you don't need as much as you might think you do. Okay, you're going to love number 4. Wine, the grapes of life. Okay, why wine? Wine is a very communal drink. It's a very relaxing drink, but it also has antioxidants, polyphenols, which are things that are very strong antioxidants, very strong for aging. Wine also has something in it that comes from the grapes called resveratrol. You can buy it in a pill form, but resveratrol in the wine form is very good for you. So moderation. And wine culture is very relaxing. It's very slow. It's very easy. It's very unwinding. So don't go crazy. Men, 1 to 2 drinks a day. Women, 1 drink. Enjoy some wine. Number 5. Now we're going to start getting into what's amazing is that the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things are basically related to culture. And that's why I keep writing about this. That's why I keep blogging about it. That's why I keep talking about it. A man without a culture is a myth. We all have a culture. We all live in one. I think it was John Donne who said that don't ask for whom the bell tolls for thee, for you. We're all connected, especially people that live near us. And in America, we live in a very rootless, a very nihilistic, a very socially isolated culture. We have to work really hard to build community. This is what the research shows, and this is also what the just common sense and wisdom tells us. Okay, but too many people have rejected the fact that culture is what builds health. And I don't know about you, but I'm not going to go the direction of this nihilistic, meaningless, this sort of anti-culture that we have now, where we have no respect for tradition, no respect for morality, no respect for religion. I'm not going to go that way. I'm going to go the other way and have a sense of awe about life. And this author really backed that up. He basically goes through, let's start working our way through these things. Number 5, purpose, having a purpose in your life. Now, he doesn't necessarily say you have to have this purpose or that purpose, but you need to have some purpose. I wrote about this in my book called Healthy Work. And I wrote about how we need to be motivated by our internal core values. You can get something on my website called the Motivation Matrix. It's one of the best things that I've ever come up with, and I've had many, many people tell me that they love it. And so that Motivation Matrix, it's basically saying that on the inside we have our values, and we have our goals that we set related to our values, and we have projects and habits that we engage in based on what our core values are. But the author, Butner, in the Blue Zones, he talks about that with number 5, having a purpose in life. For me personally, I'll tell you, my internal core values are things like God, family, health, learning, growing, and new challenges at work, being physically, mentally, spiritually strong, having courage, being good at things, learning and improving my skills, and then also the spiritual values. So these are the things that are most important to me to give my life purpose, and I use that motivation matrix to set goals for myself, and it works very well. And all these people in the Blue Zones have that. They have that sense of purpose. Usually for them, it's connected to their community. It's connected to the survival and the motivation to keep the community going. Okay, and so let's move on so we have time to cover these. Number 6, downshift. Just de-stress. We live in way too stressful of a culture because we're in too much debt. We're too focused on external values. We're too focused on the external. We need to focus on internally decompressing. We need to focus on unwinding. We need to focus on those things that will help us to relax. And we need to make time to really do that. We need to have rituals built into our day that help us to relax. And there are obviously a ton of ways we could do that, but all of these groups most of them have like a happy hour in the evening with a bunch of friends, either like a local bar or at a local picnic area, or they go walking together, this sort of thing. But all of these groups, they unwind. They have de-stressing activities built in. What about the siesta in Nicoya? That's popular or well known in the Spanish cultures, but in Costa Rica, Nicoya, Costa Rica. If I didn't already mention the 5 places, I think I did, but Okinawa, Nicoya, Costa Rica, Sardinia, which is in Italy, Loma Linda, California, and Icaria, Greece. Those are the 5 places, 5 blue zones where people live on average about 10 years longer. But they have that built in, that de-stressing effect. Okay, what about number 7? What about belonging? Belonging to a community. This is huge. You could literally go your entire life in America socially isolated. I know because I see it. I see it in people that I meet in my various projects and the various things I belong to that I work with. I see it in myself how it's very easy to be socially isolated because of the way we live, right? We live in houses, we live in neighborhoods. We're not that close to each other. Many of the health problems we have in America, obesity, stress, social isolation, many of those things are caused by economics. We didn't mean for it to be that way, but that's the way it's ended up. So we have to purposefully find a group to belong to. All 5 of these groups have a religious culture. They all have a religious tradition that they belong to. And I recommend that you do that as well because it's good for you and it's good in and of itself. In other words, it can draw you out of your own little selfish, narcissistic little hell, frankly, that you can get into. And I think we can all get there at times. So we need to belong to something bigger than ourselves. That was very common in the blue zones, belonging. Okay, what about number 8? These all are connected, right? These last few things. Loved ones come first. Family comes first. Now, what do we do in America? What do we do? It's all about the job. It's all about money. It's all about keeping up with the Joneses, right? Now, I like money. I like having a job and a business, and I like working. I love to work. Work is good. I wrote a book about that. But we need to flip this. Family, community, belonging, the social world here, work, money here. We need to flip those two because loved ones should come before anything else. And I pretty much grew up in a culture that was like that, but I can feel the tension all throughout my life pulling me away from that, And I think we all can if we're honest with ourselves. And the last one, number 9, is find the right tribe. Now, what the author means by that, and I agree with him, is he says to pick people that you want to spend your life with and that share your values, share healthy values, and be with those people on a regular basis. All of these groups, the Greeks, I've been to Greece. I stayed with a Greek family on the island of, it wasn't the island profiled in the book Blue Zones, but I stayed in Crete and I saw that very close-knit culture. They have the same religion, they have the same music, they eat dinner together, they go for walks on the beach, they go swimming in the morning. They don't have as much money as Americans, but I think in many ways they're happier. And I know if you look at the blue zones across the board, these people are much healthier, much happier than we are because they're doing things right. Check out the website, the Blue Zones website. I don't have it on me, but just Google it, look it up online. There's a test you can do to find out how good of a job you're doing. But I highly recommend the book. There's some physical things, some stress-related mental things, but there's a lot related to culture. What are the Blue Zones doing that we can do? I highly recommend, again, reading the book, but let's all make an effort. to move naturally, eat less, Hari Hachi Bu, have a plant slant, sip on some wine, have a purpose, de-stress, belong, put loved ones first, and find the right tribe to go through life with. Okay, ScottGodwin.net, movementandmeaning.com. I always enjoy being with you, and I will see you soon.